In 1980, a 25-year-old with thick glasses walked into a meeting room at the world's most powerful computer company. Bill Gates had no operating system to offer, but he promised to deliver what IBM desperately needed. What happened next would become one of the most audacious business gambles in history, transforming a tiny software startup into the most dominant technology empire on the planet. The deal Gates struck that day defied conventional wisdom. While most entrepreneurs would have sold their technology outright to a corporate giant, Gates insisted on something different. He wanted to license the operating system, not sell it. This meant Microsoft could retain ownership and sell the same software to other computer manufacturers. IBM, focused on hardware dominance, agreed without realizing they had just handed over the keys to the software kingdom. But there was one problem. Microsoft didn't actually have an operating system. Gates had to scramble to find one. He purchased an existing system called 86 DOS from Seattle Computer Products for just $50,000. After adapting it for IBM's machines, Microsoft renamed it MS-DOS and began licensing it to IBM and, crucially, to every other company building personal computers. This single decision created an empire built on recurring revenue that would generate billions. The licensing model was revolutionary. Every computer sold meant another payment to Microsoft. As personal computers flooded into homes and offices throughout the 1980s, Microsoft's revenue exploded. By the time competitors realized what had happened, Microsoft had already established itself as the standard operating system for the entire industry. Gates understood something fundamental that others missed. The real power in computing wasn't in the hardware. It was in the software that made the hardware useful. While IBM and other manufacturers competed on processor speeds and memory capacity, Microsoft quietly became the indispensable layer between the machine and the user. This shift in thinking would define the next 4 decades of technology. The second pivotal decision came in 1983 when Gates and his team committed to graphical user interfaces. Most people today don't remember typing commands into black screens, but that's how computers worked before Windows and icons. Gates recognized that computers would never reach mass adoption if they required technical expertise to operate. The graphical interface, invented at Xerox's research center but never successfully commercialized, became Microsoft's next conquest. Working closely with Apple during the development of the Macintosh, Gates saw the future taking shape. Microsoft released Windows 1.0 in 1985, bringing point-and-click functionality to millions of computers running MS-DOS. The transformation was gradual, but by the 1990s, Windows had become synonymous with personal computing itself. Competitors tried to challenge Microsoft's dominance, but the company had already built an insurmountable lead. The aggressive business tactics that accompanied this growth sparked controversy. Microsoft bundled Internet Explorer with Windows, crushing Netscape's browser business. The company used exclusive licensing agreements to lock out competitors and employed strategic acquisitions to eliminate threats before they could mature. These practices eventually led to antitrust investigations and a landmark case that nearly split the company in two. Microsoft survived, but the legal battles revealed the ruthless efficiency with which Gates had constructed his empire. By 2000, Microsoft had achieved something unprecedented. The company controlled over 90% of the personal computer operating system market. Windows and Office had become essential tools for businesses worldwide. Gates had transformed a 2-person startup into a $300 billion corporation. But the very dominance that made Microsoft unstoppable also planted the seeds of its greatest challenge. The world was changing. Mobile phones were evolving into powerful computers. Cloud computing was emerging as the future of business technology. Social networks were reshaping how people interacted online. Microsoft, so dominant in the personal computer era, struggled to adapt. The company's attempts to compete in smartphones failed spectacularly. Its search engine remained a distant second to Google. The stock price stagnated for over a decade as investors watched newer companies capture the innovation spotlight. In 2014, a quiet engineer named Satya Nadella became Microsoft's third chief executive. The company he inherited was worth $300 billion, impressive on paper but stagnant in reality. Employees worked in isolated departments that competed rather than collaborated. The company culture emphasized individual achievement over teamwork, creating internal battles that drained energy and killed innovation. Microsoft was no longer seen as a technology leader, but as a legacy company clinging to past glory. Nadella's first major decision shocked the technology world. He announced that Microsoft would embrace open-source software and support Linux, the operating system that had been Microsoft's philosophical enemy for decades. This move signaled a fundamental shift in strategy. Instead of trying to control everything, Microsoft would become a platform that worked with everyone. The company began releasing its software on Apple's devices and Google's Android, abandoning the exclusive lock-in strategy that had defined the Gates and Ballmer eras. The transformation centered on cloud computing. While Microsoft had launched Azure in 2010, the platform remained a secondary priority under previous leadership. Nadella made it the company's primary focus, investing billions in data centers and aggressively competing with Amazon's dominant web services. He moved Windows and Office to subscription models accessible from any device, fundamentally changing how Microsoft generated revenue. The bet was enormous and risky, potentially cannibalizing the profitable on-premises software business that had sustained the company for decades. Nadella also recognized that artificial intelligence represented the next computing revolution. In 2019, Microsoft invested $1 billion in OpenAI, a research organization developing advanced language models. The partnership gave Microsoft exclusive access to groundbreaking technology that would power a new generation of products. When OpenAI released ChatGPT in late 2022, it triggered a global race in artificial intelligence that positioned Microsoft as the industry leader. The investment in OpenAI has grown to approximately $135 billion, with Microsoft holding roughly 27% ownership. Azure became OpenAI's primary infrastructure provider, processing the massive computational workloads required to train advanced models. Microsoft integrated this technology across its entire product lineup, from Office applications to developer tools to search engines. The partnership transformed Microsoft from a struggling legacy company into the most valuable artificial intelligence platform in the world. The financial results speak clearly. Microsoft's market value surged from $300 billion in 2014 to over $3 trillion by 2020. 4. Azure grew to generate over $75 billion in annual revenue, with 95% of Fortune 500 companies relying on the platform. The company's stock price increased nearly tenfold under Nadella's leadership, erasing the stagnation of the previous decade. Microsoft had not just survived the transition to cloud and artificial intelligence, it had emerged as the dominant force shaping both industries. What makes Microsoft's story remarkable isn't just the technology or the billions in revenue. It's the strategic decisions made at critical moments that determine the company's trajectory. Gates understood that controlling software standards mattered more than building hardware. He recognized the importance of accessibility through graphical interfaces. He ruthlessly defended Microsoft's market position even when it invited legal scrutiny. These choices, controversial as some were, established Microsoft as the foundational platform of the personal computer revolution. Nadella's contribution was equally transformative, but required dismantling much of what Gates had built. He abandoned the closed ecosystem strategy, embraced former enemies, and bet the company's future on cloud infrastructure and artificial intelligence. The culture he fostered emphasized learning over winning, collaboration over competition, and long-term vision over quarterly results. This approach allowed Microsoft to reinvent itself for a new technological era without losing the massive customer base it had accumulated over 4 decades. The lesson isn't about specific technologies or market tactics. It's about recognizing inflection points and having the courage to make decisions that reshape entire industries. When Gates saw personal computers emerging in garages and university labs, he understood they would eventually sit on every desk in every office. When Nadella saw cloud computing and artificial intelligence converging, he committed Microsoft's entire future to platforms that didn't yet dominate the market. Both leaders made bets that seemed risky at the time but proved prescient in retrospect. Microsoft's empire wasn't built on a single innovation or lucky break. It was constructed through a series of calculated decisions that compounded over decades. From that first meeting with IBM to the partnership with OpenAI, from licensing MS-DOS to transforming into a cloud-first company, each choice built on previous successes while adapting to changing realities. The company that started in a garage has become the infrastructure underlying much of modern computing, proving that the biggest empires are built not through accidents, but through deliberate strategic vision executed relentlessly across generations of leadership.